Today we're talking about the Sigma 35mm f1.2 and why I think it may be the best low light lens for the Sigma FP as well as the Lumix S5 or S1H. Now last week I did a low light comparison of the Lumix S5 versus the Sigma FP, and this is kind of a follow-up to that because this is honestly one of the best low light lenses in my opinion for the Lumix S5 and Sigma FP. And so with that, I do want to give the clarification, and before we dive in, I do want to give the clarification that Sigma did ask me to review this lens, but as always, they are not requiring me to say anything specifically, and so you can trust that you're going to get my full and honest opinion. Now that being said, we are going to break down this lens as we do always by the image, the build, and my overall thoughts / who I think could be useful for. And let's start by talking about the image. Now right off the bat, talking about the image, I do want to say this is one of the most creative lenses I've used in quite some time. And there's two things about this lens that really lean into that creativity. One is going to be the f1.2 aperture, having that razor thin shallow depth of field, but then the other thing is going to be the overall sharpness. This lens is really sharp when it's in focus, and having that marriage of sharpness to the shallow depth of field just creates a really unique image. And what's nice about it too is there are other fast aperture lenses for the L-mount system, but the thing that you might get with some of those is things like chromatic aberration or some of those flawed attributes of the lens. And this lens does not have those flawed attributes. We have come to know Sigma to be super clinical and clean as far as the image is concerned, and this lens is no different. And so again, this lens really allows you to be super creative with the marriage of a super sharp, clean lens with a razor thin shallow depth of field. And so with all of that, I really have loved the overall image performance of this lens. And so moving on, let's talk about the build of the lens. Now this is a super sturdy lens. It is a little bit more on the hefty side, and so you may want to take that into account when you're using this lens. It may wear on you if you're going handheld for a long period of time, but that is something you do want to consider. It does have an 82mm filter thread, and it also does have a manual aperture ring. Now you can switch that over to the auto aperture and control on your camera, but it does give you the ability to switch your aperture manually on the lens. There is a switch on the side that does allow for you to declick or click the aperture depending on your preference, and above that there is a focus hold button, which I believe can be programmable, and a manual focus and autofocus switch. And on the subject of build quality, this is dust and splash resistant, and so know that you're going to get that out of this lens, so that's a nice feature to have. So very consistent with what we expect to see from Art Series DGDN lenses, and so really good image quality, sturdy, hefty build. With that, let's talk about my overall thoughts and who to recommend this lens to. Simply put, if you are looking for a really fast 35mm lens, this is absolutely one I would check out. I've been really impressed with the overall performance of this lens. If you can't tell from how I'm speaking about this lens, I really do love the way that it performs. Now that being said, this lens can be on the pricier side, coming in around $1,500, but that said, if you can find this lens on a deal, especially coming up to the holiday season, I would absolutely snag this lens while you can. And so if you are looking for a fast 35mm lens, and especially if you can find a really good deal on it, I would 100% recommend the 35mm f1.2 from Sigma. And so that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like, and if you're digging the overall content from the channel, consider subscribing. If you do have any questions about this lens, let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you for joining. Go and find your journey. Go embrace life. Peace. Just so everyone knows, the intern is okay.
I'm Batman.